But I did notice that you have a lot of information about current ways that your children and grandchildren are involved. What are future plans for your farm?
The future plans for our farm is our son came back to farm 8 years ago. His original plan, he went to college and got a mechanical engineering degree, and his plan was to go and work for 5 years and then come back and help farm. So it was a little more than 5 years, but they came back 8 years ago, the end of September. And when he came back, he had been working, he has a mechanical engineering degree, and he'd been working for Fleener Manufacturing in Pella. And when he came back, we made the arrangement, because he was getting paid fairly well, and so we made the arrangement that he had also started his business of metal fabrication and making gun targets and going to a lot of gun shows and selling them. And so we made the arrangement that we would pay him half the salary, and he would work at selling targets for the other half of his salary. And we did that for several years. And then about 5 years ago, I think it's been 5 years, we signed up for the Beginning Farmer program with him. And so at that time, we gradually started, instead of paying him, he gets more of the crop. And so since part of our land is in my name and part of the land is in Raymond's name, or our trust, and part is in our joint trust, we figured out a percentage that each of us would get of the crop. And so what we figured out, the percentage that would actually equal what we had been paying him in wages and things before. And so the eventual goal is he is the beneficiary of our trust. He and our daughter are both beneficiaries of the trust, and it is set up that he will get the land and our daughter will get the money. My husband in college was a business major, and he has always been very wise with money, and from a very early age began investing in the stock market to balance out farming if we ever had a problem. So we have kind of balanced our estate that way, that our daughter will get the money and our son will get the land. And so as of right now, our son this year put the crop in all by himself. My husband is still out there every day doing things. He finds things to do all the time. He's a farmer at heart. And I will say that he was going to testify, and he decided that because part of this, the land that isn't just in his name, is land that has been in his family. That's the part that became a century farm last year. And he figured it would just be too emotional to come up and talk about that. I mean, our house was built in 1894, and our barn was built in 1892, and we actually still have the original homestead house on our farm. So there's a lot of history on this farm, and my husband was an only child, and so he feels a big responsibility for that land, and he has lived there for his 76 years, except for the years that he served in the military, where he went to defend our property rights. And now they're trying to take those property rights away from him. It's highly emotional for him to have to be up here to testify. He was afraid he would either break down or he would get extremely angry at people and yell at them. In fact, that's why most of our encounters with Summit and with the surveyors he sends me, because he's afraid he'll lose his cool with them. So back to it, our plan is our son is gradually taking over. I think each generation we've made changes, because I have a picture in our testimony of his dad with the tractor that has dual tractors on it that he bought, I think it's like in 1950. I mean, that was to cut down on erosion or compaction in the field already back then. My husband inherited his land from his dad when he died, and then we also have some land that the pipeline is not going through that he inherited from his mother. But we worked hard and we bought the other land ourselves. And so it's very important to us that, you know, our son's plan is he realizes that he's going to have to figure out how to do this pretty much on his own for a while. But he has that mechanical engineering mind, and so he has upgraded a lot of his equipment so that we have done minimum till for years. He is also doing some no-till, and in our highly erodible land, he also did some contour farming. He has bought machinery that reduces the impaction of the soil, that kind of fluffs it and things. I don't understand all of what he's doing to the machinery, but anytime he buys a piece of machinery, he makes adjustments to it. He's made adjustments to the planter to help in it. He's experimented with cover crops. In fact, he bought this, I have a picture of it in our exhibit, where he made the machine to try out cover crops. Didn't work real well, but all the neighbors were impressed and were getting ready to hire him to come and do cover crops on their land. I think Ray and I, the improvements that we made on this farm.
Objection, Your Honor.
State the objection.
I'm going to object to the narrative response as non-responsive at this point. I believe the question was, what's the future plan for your property?
I think it all has to do with the future plans of our property.
It is, Brian.
I can ask a more specific question at this point.
Thank you.
Looking at your testimony and the pictures in your testimony, I'm guessing that there's a multi-generational plan here, and that even if there aren't specific plans at this point, there are probably already ideas about passing it on even to your grandchildren?
Yes. And my 7-year-old grandson, who is Curtis's son, already talks about farming with his dad. My daughter lives in Bettendorf, and her oldest son loves the farm. And even just a week or so ago, she sent me a text message and said, Jacob's wondering if Grandpa's out combining and farming yet. And then he proceeded to get all of his farm equipment out to farm. They always come up during harvest. I mean, we have improved that land with all kinds of tile and things so that it is productive for our family to continue. It's possible that our grandson may want to come back, and both grandsons may want to come back and farm. We have 3 grandsons. I forgot about little Cole, who's only 5. They love the farm. I think if you look at my pictures, they love our old barn. They go in the haymow and the swing. We have a trampoline in the barn that they go and play in. Little Ava, who is Curtis's daughter, begs to come over to Grandma and Grandpa's almost every weekend. I feel bad that I haven't been able to spend as much time with them as I would like because I've been busy fighting pipeline. But we have a huge sandbox next to our well and next to the barn that they spend hours in that sandbox. The well is right there. We hook up a hose. They make waterways. They're learning about erosion through all of that things. Farming is the best way to learn about life lessons. I mean, so yes, we hope to have this continue for many generations to come.
And given that it sounds like harvest is something that your family is used to getting together to do, is it hard for you to be here during harvest season?
Yes. In fact, I actually told my husband he wouldn't have to come today, but he wanted me to call and tell him, because I've been here 2 other times on the list and didn't get to testify, and he's been here. My son made one of the trips here, and then I didn't get to testify. So I called him at noon and said, well, I think I will get to. So he came home, drove all the way over to be here to support me. But yes, we are in the middle of harvest. I mean, we're doing beans, and actually I was just at my daughter's last Wednesday and Thursday, because in fact when I left Tuesday when I was supposed to have testified, I left not knowing if or when I would get to testify, because I had promised my daughter 2 months ago that I would be there to watch her boys while she took Hannah to the University of Iowa for tests from the accident that I wrote about in the IUB docket in August, when they were in a car accident, and she's been on anticoagulants for a blood clot next to her kidney since then, and she had tests all day that day. So I had promised my daughter that I would be there to watch those boys, so she wouldn't have to worry about that. I could take Jacob to school and pick him up and take care of them. They are why I am fighting for this. I believe God gave me this land as a steward of this land, and my children share that same vision, and we believe that we need to care for it to the best of our abilities.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Ms. Colas.
Good evening, Ms. Stockdale. Jean Colas, Family Farms. I have a few questions. You said your son actively farms this land. About how many acres is your farm?
Let me think for a minute. We had about 550. We just bought the 66.7 acres ourselves, and our son just bought 130 acres.
So definitely being supported, his family being supported.
Yes, in fact, if you look at the division of our crop, he is actually getting like 65% of the crop at this time. And Ray and I, since we are retired and have Social Security, and Ray has invested very wisely, he needs the income more than we do. I think I get like a 14%, and Ray is at 21%. Although that will change since we just bought the 66 acres. Curtis and I will share that one.
So that's a good reason why you built 2 new grain bins.
Yeah, well, we have one built and we need to build the other one, which that whole, if you look at the location of where our grain dryer setup is, it is the closest thing to the pipeline going through. And I would also mention that our son, when he came back, they had looked for an acreage. My daughter-in-law had wanted one on a blacktop, but they tried a couple different places and didn't work, so they came back, and they actually sold their house in Pella, came back and bought a triple-wide trailer that they now live on, that they put on the farm, and he used the money from their house to build his shop.
Can you bring up the KMZ map so I can see where that is located? Ms. Stockdale, can you use the pointer and show me where that's located on the map?
I have to see if I can remember how they showed me how to use it. I'm not sure which end is which. Is that? Must be the other way.
Chuck is good.
Chuck coming. Maybe it's here. Oh, there it is. Okay, his house is right over here. That's where his triple wide trailer is. This is his shop. And this is my husband, just a couple years ago, built a machine shed right there. They have a playground that they have right here that they play on all the time.
Can you please measure that to the pipeline, proposed pipeline, please?
$1,053.
Okay, as we go further along there, what is that to the north of the pipeline, just to the east? of the residents?
Of their place, that is a waterway. This actually, the whole field here, yeah, okay, there. This section and these sections are all highly erodible land.
So do you have a lot of pattern tile?
Yes, in fact, that's in Exhibit 264. I added those after our Hardin County drainage person, Mr. Galantine, was on, because he talked about all the private tile in the drainage districts. So I have a map of, we are actually in 3 different drainage districts. We have Drainage District 98 is coming like in through here. And actually there is an intake almost right in here. We have a waterway right here. This is a T intersection. This neighbor has a driveway up here, and this neighbor has a driveway about right in here. So, and now they're wanting to come here. So that's going to make a real problem for travel, because we use this field, all the neighbors use this field during planting and harvest. It is also used by, if you go north of our house, there's a confinement, that's Iowa Select Farms. They have 6,000 sows there. They have a gilt house that's over here. So they have a lot of employees that also use this road and come in and out. Actually, over here farther, we also have an FS station that lots of times they will use the gravel road to come back and forth. Actually, this is the land that our son just bought, is right here. So, yeah, I forgot where I was going. But yeah, this land is all highly erodible around his house and around our house.
It seems like there might be an acreage that is sectioned off.
There are actually 2 other acreages here. This is Zach Grunewald, and this is Wendell Newton. And there's also an acreage across from our son, right there. And another one down in here.
Do they have concern about the proposed pipeline?
Yes. Actually, the ones down here actually raise horses that they sell. They're like expensive horses. I know the Dags are concerned. He actually drives these roads every day. He actually works for John Deere in Waterloo, so he's going back and forth all the time. Actually, the school bus goes by here every day. So it is actually a very well-traveled road, considering we have, actually it's, for being in the country, we actually have a lot of farms or acreages. We also have 2 neighbors just to the north over here, just up a ways. There is a neighbor who lives like down in here a little ways, and we have another neighbor over here. And then, then the FS plant is up here and farther north. So actually, we're in what used to be called Macy. There was a Macy elevator who is just east of here. And so this whole area was considered Macy for a long time. And so, yeah.
So there's a sharp jog in the pipeline.
Yes.
It's a 45-degree angle. Why is that?
Well, this area right here we have is 30 acres of wetlands. And so, and also, if you look here, this is now a wetlands. There's a waterway that comes down through here. So this is, actually, we have a lot of pattern tile over the whole field. I just filed in the exhibits. It's all pattern tile. That's my husband and I,
Objection, Your Honor.
State the objection.
I want to object to this narrative response as non-responsive to the question, which was, why does the pipeline make that jog?
okay.
Okay, Ms. Colas?
Okay.
I'll go back and explain that. It makes the jog right there because this is a railroad tracks and it has to come down through here. And this is actually where the two pipelines will cross, Summit and Navigator is in this area. So if you see, this is the edge. Actually, on this map, it shows it actually going through our wetlands. But I know that in August, Ray went out. He got permission to go out and cut some of it was after the nesting season. He was going out to cut off the tops of the ragweed in there, and as he looked out, he noticed that we had a stake in the field. Well, we had just had, Summit had just come to survey again, and we've told them from the very beginning, when you come with an intervention, or with, I'm trying to think what it's called, that we told them that they had to come with the order to say that they had to survey, then we would let them. But they have continually come to survey on our land without our permission. And so, I forgot where I was going with that, but, so, yeah, so my husband found, as he was,
Objection, Your Honor.
State the objection.
The question still is, why does the pipeline make that bend like that? And now we're talking about surveys and many other things.
Okay, Ms. Colas, do you want to
Okay,
respond
okay.
to the objection?
Certainly. She mentioned that it's close to wetlands. Do you think
Yeah.
part of the reason for the jog is because of the wetlands, to avoid it?
yeah, well, yes. And actually, it comes through here, and actually, the wetlands ends like right here. So on this map, it looks like it's actually going through the wetlands. Actually, as I was saying, we went and found a stake in the field when my husband was out there, and it's actually 53 feet away from our wetlands, but when they have a 50-foot easement to work in it, it looks like they were going to go into our wetlands. But this, if you look at our map, this, they will be boring under the railroad tracks right here is what this is a railroad tracks. This railroad tracks is extremely high up in the air. So, and actually, if you look at this, Summit is going through here, and Navigator is proposing to go through over here. So they are both proposing to go, Navigator is going like over in here. So they are both, they are actually crossing in here, and both going under the railroad tracks, which is really a concern for us as landowners, knowing about, wondering, I mean, this train track vibrates. I mean, we live up here, and there are times in right conditions that we can feel that railroad track vibrate. So what is the effect of that vibration going to be on these two pipelines, especially when they're going to be crossing right in here? In fact, I wrote this question to the
Objection,
IUB.
Your Honor.
State the objection.
Object again to the narrative response as unresponsive at this point. I believe the question at this point was, is part of the reason for that jog in the line to avoid the wetlands?
Ms. Colas?
Okay, I'm concerned about the Navigator pipeline going
Okay,
on.
Ms. Colas,
Yeah.
questions?
Yes, I'm concerned about the Summit and the Navigator pipeline crossing, and if she had any conversation with her concerns with Summit about that.
Okay, do you want to state that in a very specific question?
Have you ever discussed your concerns with how the two pipelines go under the railroad track with Summit?
Not directly with Summit, but I did put it in an IUB docket, and I got a response from Mr. Leonard saying that he would like to come and talk to us. But I'd had enough conversations with them before that I had said, would you please put it in writing how this is going to work? Actually, I brought this up at the FIMSMA meeting also, and was trying to think who he was with, that one of the FIMSMA guys told me that with them crossing each other, that they would have to work it out between the two companies as to who would be liable. So, but I listed a whole list of questions to the IUB of my questions for those two crossing there. I got the response that, well, we would love to come and talk to you. And I said, well, I have to say that I truly don't trust what they would say. I said, I wanted it in writing, and I never got a response.
Have you attempted to get liability insurance?
When this first started, we talked to our insurance agent, and he wouldn't put anything in writing at that time. But he said there's the pollution clause that it would not cover. And I would point out that if you look at this path, I'm not sure how they're even coming into work, because they are crossing the road up here and they're coming under the railroad tracks here. So to me, they're going to have to be driving back and forth a lot over the easement to build this whole pipeline. And I think they're boring under the road here, but it doesn't show in our CAMs, in any of our maps, that they're actually boring or which side they're coming in from. This is a busy intersection. I mean, that's going to be another path. And there's actually an intake right here that this field, their drainage district, actually comes down through this corner. If you were right there, you'd see where my husband has piled a whole bunch of rocks in that corner to help with that. And it comes down through a culvert under the road, and there's another drain right in here. This farmer's land drains down through here, and our drains down through there. Actually, that's the one drainage comes down through there. We always also have a drainage tiles that come in through over here. But then the whole rest of the rest of our farm is in one big drainage district. I have it in I just attached it in there. It's called Drainage District 98. And so, forgot where I was going with that, but yeah.
Objection, Your Honor.
State the objection.
I'll object to the narrative response is unresponsive. I think the question was about whether or not she'd been in contact with her insurance company.
Ms. Colas?
Yeah.
I'll go on. Are you concerned that Summit is a limited liability company?
Very much so. And doing research, they have more than one entity to cover themselves.
Have they given you any comment on the risk or hazards of having a pipeline in your land?
No, I've asked several times. No, they refuse to answer those questions.
So they've not provided you with a plume study either?
No.
Are you concerned that your property and the people living there are considered of low consequence?
Yes. I have great concern. I mean, Ray and I are older, so it doesn't concern me as much for us, but for my young family, it does. For my neighbors, it does.
Do you see
Yes.
any benefit for this pipeline on your land to your family?
No, I see no benefit whatsoever. In fact, it's cutting our farm in half. It's cutting, if we could put the tile line maps up there, you would see how much tile they are going to be cutting going through this farm. Ray and I have pattern tiled all of this that it's going through. And actually I have the original drainage district map of lists all of the pipeline. I mean, we have one of the biggest drainage districts in Hardin County. It's Drainage District 39, that it covers a great deal of Hardin County. Our tile is going to be affected, and it's going to affect all those tile lines south of us.
Are you concerned that Summit doesn't have any experience with a pipeline of this nature?
I'm very concerned, and I would say that since we're from Hardin County, we're also home of Bruce Rastetter. And I will tell you that we know the history of Bruce, and Bruce is known for he started several companies that he has sold off on the brink of bankruptcy. So, and I know that he actually helped start the Poet plant that's in Hardin County in Iowa, and I think it's telling that they didn't actually sign up with Summit to go with them. They signed up with Navigator instead. As I said, my son built gun targets for Bruce.
Is there anything else you want to bring before the board that you've not discussed yet and is not covered in your pre-filed testimony?
Objection, Your Honor.
State the objection.
That's not a cross-examination question. It's just an invitation for a closing statement, more direct examination.
Ms. Coles, do you have a response to that?
I think I pretty much covered everything. Thank you very much, Ms. Stockdale.
Thank you. Ms. Hike?
Hello, Ms. Stockdale. I'm Chris Hike.
Hi.
I'm a landowner as well.
Ms. Stockdale, you can move that microphone if it's more comfortable for you.
Just a couple questions. You'd mentioned you'd had some surveyors. Do you know if all 6 of your parcels were surveyed? And if so, were you present or did you interact with them?
They have come on our land several times to survey. I've posted them. I've written letters to the IUB, to their staff, not in the docket, but in actual letters to them. We have told them from the very beginning that they would have to get the injunction to come and survey our land, but yet they continue to come and survey. There was one time that they came that they were sitting down at the corner, and I mean, I think they had 5 or 6 cars. I wrote it in the docket, so it's in there. They were halfway walking across the field, and it's kind of somewhat ironical because my husband had just been out the day before and had sprayed the waterway and the fence lines for weeds, and that's where they walked across. So they were exposing themselves to all those chemicals that my husband had just sprayed on that land. And we have told them from the beginning that if they do come, we want a phone call, and no response. They were also halfway down our field, and they called them to come back. So, yeah, what we've told them continually, when you bring the injunction, we'll let you survey. That's what the code says. And so, but they have never listened to those requests.
How far away are you from the nearest emergency services?
We are actually about 6 to 7 miles away from Iowa Falls. We're kind of equal distance between Iowa Falls and Ackley, but I know that Ackley and Eldora just joined their services together, and I think Mr. Creighton testified in his testimony of how short-staffed for EMTs we have in our area. I think Hardin County I think Iowa Falls probably had the most, but it's still on what day, how many can be there, because they are all volunteer. Our nearest hazmat is in Waterloo, is what I'm told. So that's at least an hour away. And when you consider how close our house is, and our son's house, and all those other neighbors, it's a concern. Especially when we have two pipelines that are proposed to cross each other. I asked the Department of Energy guy who was at the FMSMA meeting, and he said, well, the two companies would have to figure out who would be liable since they are covering, and since they are crossing each other. I could not get that answer from Senator Navigator.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Gruenhagen?
Thank you, Your Honor. Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
Chris Gruenhagen with the Iowa Farm Bureau. I have a few questions for you. If the IUB staff could pull up her exhibit 264 for me. And then go to page 17. I'm sorry, it was a hearing exhibit 264. I think that's her testimony.
Is that the exhibits 264 with all the tile maps?
Yes.
They were attached at a later date.
They were filed separate from
Yes.
from her direct testimony. Filed on September 1st, if that helps. Thank you. And then just go ahead and go to page 17. I believe that's the right document. Thank you. Now, is this a hand-drawn map?
Yes, this was actually drawn in, I have to remember what year, 2001, when we first got so if you look at this, they have moved the pipeline a little bit farther north. They actually come into right next to the CRP on the bottom right. Yeah. I think.
It's okay. I just asked them yes or no questions regarding this map. And
yes.
So does this represent all the land that you own in the area? Other than the new parcel that you mentioned to the east?
Yes.
Okay.
Because we do have the 47 acres that are across the railroad tracks.
And then the two wetlands that you've discussed in your direct testimony, you had a 7-acre wetland and a 30-acre wetland. Are those represented by the circle that's kind of in the...
Yes. That's
Town
directly
center.
south of that, yes.
And then the
What-
one that's labeled, and then is the one labeled CRP the other one?
Yes. Actually, the one that is the circle, that is on the main county tile.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and there's from up here, we have a tile that comes right down in through here. And yeah, we've tiled on all of these. I mean, this is like the top of the hill, and then we have tile lines coming down on both sides. This farm over here is all the highly erodible land.
Okay,
This-
I just want to talk about the
Yeah,
tile.
tile, yeah,
So let's
okay.
let's stick with that for now.
Okay,
And so all the red lines on there, those are the county tiles?
yes.
Okay. And so does the proposed pipeline route intersect any of the county tiles, to your knowledge?
I'm not sure if it does or not, because they've moved the route is actually farther north up in here. So and they're coming in like here, so yeah, so I think they're more so like this. So I think they're probably somewhat south of the county tile.
And so does the proposed pipeline route intersect any of those wetlands that you've indicated?
We are not sure. Well, we also have a waterway up here
Let's just focus on
Okay.
the wetlands for a little.
on the wetlands. We're not sure because if you look at at the KMZ that they brought up, it looks like they are actually like over in here, but their easement is for 50 feet beside it, like where my husband we found the stake in the field, and it's dated August, no, I was trying to think, I put it in the IUB docket, I have a picture of the stake in the field, and it's actually 53 feet from the CRP, so, and they have the 50-foot easement on each side, so it looks like they may actually approach coming in through this CRP right here. In fact, after we saw that, I went to the ASCS office and asked them what happens if they get into our CRP, what happens to our contract with that?
But to your knowledge, it approaches it, but it does not intersect it, correct?
We're not positive. You can't tell directly from their map if it does or does not. I think their work zone may go into it.
So if it does impact your contract, would you expect Summit to pay any penalties as a result of the breach of the contract?
Yes.
And then the remainder of the map here, it shows your pattern tiles, correct?
Yes.
And because it's hand drawn, the lines aren't perfectly straight. Are they probably more straight in the field?
I would assume so. Yeah. I mean, I have copies of the actual maps from the Tyler in my docket, but these are my rough drafts of where approximately it is. But you can see we have a lot of pattern tiling that Ray and I have put in, and it's crossing through a lot of it. And I would.
Okay. Have you provided these tile maps to Summit, other than just filing in the docket here?
No, but they've never asked for them.
Have you provided them to Ellingson, their drainage tile firm?
They've been done by McDowell in Iowa Falls, but no.
Would you consider, if the pipeline project is approved, would you consider doing that?
I don't want it on my land.
I understand.
I have, and if they could bring up the whole drainage district 39, I mean,
Let's just stick with the tile maps right now. Okay. Have you had any conversations with your county inspector about your tiles?
they are very aware of them.
Okay. So they have your maps. So when you
Yes.
inspect, they know where they're at.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent.
And they're all with the ASCS office and all of that, yeah. They have to all be approved through there.
When you say ASCS, do you mean NRCS?
NRCS, yes, sorry.
Okay. Or FSA?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure that we're
Yes.
talking about the same thing. All right, excellent. You also, in your testimony, you expressed some concern about accessing the easement.
Yes.
And so I just want some clarification. Is your concern about Summit accessing the easement, or is the concern about your son accessing the land that's outside the easement?
I think both.
Okay, so let's talk about Summit accessing
Yes.
first. Since you've been in Iowa for a while, did you have the occasion to watch any of the Dakota Access construction?
No.
Would it surprise you that they tend to go along the easement area as they're constructing? The welders stay in the easement area?
I would assume that, yes.
Okay. And so you had concerns about that road.
Yes. Well, I have
Did you see the extra work area on either side of the road
No.
on your Exhibit H?
No.
Okay. Are you aware that they're going to be boring under the road?
I assume so, yes. But it's still, even though they're boring under the road, how are they entering into that field to even work? To put in the rest of the pipeline? There is no driveway. I mean, they're right next, well, the picture disappeared. I mean, they come in under the railroad track by the CRP, and they exit at a T intersection in the road. And that would be an only entrance to my knowledge. So there is no entry into this field, and it's cutting our farm in half.
Could they enter it through the easement? Because doesn't the easement have access to the road?
Which road?
Let's go ahead and pull up the KMZ file again. The road with the T intersection that you talked about earlier.
Yes. But, well, and I assume they're boring under there, but I never saw any of that on our Exhibit H, of that they were boring or how far back they were coming. I have never seen that on there.
Have you seen your Exhibit H's?
Yes.
Okay.
But that is, I mean, as I said, that is a T intersection where the one neighbor to the north has a driveway, the neighbor to the south of the T has a driveway, and now they want to also come in with a pipeline right there, and I'm assuming that they would possibly want some kind of a driveway there to come in, although it's not in the KMZ. And so that is a high traffic corner of that many driveways in one small space.
Would you want to limit Summit's access to just being able to access your property through that easement?
Yeah, well, because I see no way that they're entering on the southeast down by our wetlands. They're coming underneath the railroad, and that's a high trestle railroad.
You also expressed some concerns about being able to access part of the property during construction.
Yes.
Correct. Have you heard of a trench plug?
I've heard it talk about it around here, but no, yeah.
Have you asked Summit to put in a trench plug so that you can access all of your property?
No.
Okay. Would you like them to install trench plugs so you could access the rest of your property?
Well, I don't want the pipeline on my land, so, but in that case, yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and pull up Exhibit H for parcel HD-086. And this will be my last little bit here.
I'm like, what is 0H6?
And could you go ahead and go to page 5? And then zoom in just a little bit so we can see the diagram on the left side of that page. Okay. sorry, the left side.
Yeah.
The other way. There we go. Thank you. Okay. Do you see the things that are labeled TCE, temporary construction easement,
I guess so, yes.
and see how it's a little bit wider there?
Okay.
Do you recognize that as the work area needed for boring under the road?
I did not know that, but I will point out that that's right next to that wetlands that we have right there. It's it's like a,
This is the parcel along the road.
this is on OO Avenue.
So do you have a wetland on this parcel as well?
Well, it's a waterway. It's
Okay.
right next to a waterway.
Okay, very good.
And actually, if you look, I was talking about the drainage districts. There's actually, I have this the right way again. If you look at about where they're actually coming in is where there's a drain tile in the middle in the field, because at the corner to where the black dot is, that's where drainage district 347 comes down into drainage district 98 is over on the left side, and then drainage district 39 is over here too. So from the north, the water comes from our north field down under the culvert in the road, and then it comes down and goes into a culvert on about where they're coming through. And that's where our land drains and our neighbor's land also drains.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just one clarification for you, ma'am. You testified several times about conversations you've had with somebody you referred to as Mr. Leonard. Was that Mr. Stephen Leonard?
No, it says Brent Leonard.
Okay.
I believe that's you, right?
Do you believe that you and I have spoken before?
I'm not sure if we have or not.
Okay. Do you know Stephen Leonard, who's a land agent with Summit?
No, I don't.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jorde, redirect.
So, a little housekeeping. First of all, I would, now that it's been circulated, I would offer the hearing exhibit copied today, the Century Farm photo as exhibit 633, and would formally offer that into evidence.
Are there objections?
No objections.
Seeing no objections, the board will admit, give it the right to.
Thank you. And then following up on Mr. Leonard's question, I don't know if you have or haven't talked to him, but I think you were referencing like a complaint that you made to the IUB, and then you got a letter back, and it was from?
Brent Leonard.
Okay, all right.
Several of them.
All right, responding on behalf of his client.
Yes.
Okay. A couple more clarifications here. On the tile maps you were looking at with Ms. Grunhagen, which were filed on September 1st, I think they were marked as Exhibit 264 in the IUB filing. We already have a 264, so what I would like to do, so the record's clear, is remark what the September 1st filing as Exhibit 634, and I can re-upload that if needed, just so the record's not confused with two exhibits, both 264. So I hope I made that clear.
Are there any parties opposed to that?
No, it's just refiling it as a new exhibit number.
Correct. And so that any of the testimony related to the tile lines will actually become Exhibit 634, and the existing 264 corresponds with her, I believe, attachment 29 of her pre-file testimony.
No objection to that, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Always love an organized record.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, if any surveys occurred on your land, any of the parcels at any time, those would have been against your will and direction to Summit to not survey, correct?
That's correct.
And if we could just pull up the KMZ, when you were describing wetlands, it wasn't totally clear. I think when you were talking about wetlands, Ms. Stockdale, you were referencing wetlands on your easternmost parcel that's potentially affected by this pipeline. Is that right?
That southeast section, yes.
Okay. And has Summit at any time told you why they are clipping that sixth parcel so that they would be implicating 6 separate pieces of your property?
No, in fact, in writing, I've asked different questions, and each time they have never given me all 6 sections in response to some of the tile of the pipeline going through. In fact, I don't think I had the northwest corner of 0346 until the final KMZ. And in fact, for most of the time until the IUB went through our docket, they had the field north of our house included in our parcel that they were in the red also. And so, and sometimes, and they had not also included the parcel number for next to our wetlands. And actually, if you look at their map right now, our wetlands is that little faint red line that comes down through there. They are actually clipping the very corner of the wetlands right there.
Okay. And has Summit at any time or any of their representatives told you why they couldn't locate the pipeline north of your properties and then go east and west and then drop down south on the eastern side of your parcels?
No.
Okay. Can we zoom in, please, on Ms. Stockdale's home there, which is in the second parcel? Yeah, from the west. And can we just get a measurement, please, from her home to the pipeline? Is that your house right there, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. $707 feet. Okay. Yeah. And if that's roughly correct, 707 feet, I take it that's too close for comfort for you?
Very much so. And I will point out that my neighbors to the east are not that far away, actually. Basically, the one closest to the east. And, I mean, our son is close, and also the other neighbor is close, across from him.
And your neighbor across from where your son lives, do you know if they're also the owners of the property where the pipeline is proposed to travel?
No, they just have the acreage.
Okay, understood. Ma'am, you've got so many attachments and information, I don't have anything further for you.
I've spent a lot of time on this.
I'm sorry, I have one last question, yes. Would you estimate that you've spent over 1,000 hours devoted to this project in the last couple of years?
Actually, I figured that I probably have spent 40 hours every week. That's over, I mean...
Thousands plural.
Thousands plural, yes.
And you haven't been compensated for that economic detriment?
No.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything further, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stockdale. You're excused. Okay. We have one more, and we have a very patient and diligent court reporter.
All right, well, I agree with that. Let's try to get one more. I will call Cynthia Krutoff, please.